Hello, everyone. I'm Mariquita Solis from Climate Healers, and I want to make sure to invite you to VCOP 22, Thriving on Planet B, July 26th and 27th. Make sure you register early because we want to make sure that you're there. You get your spot, and there are going to be plenty of wonderful speakers on both days. You don't have to be there all the time. You can join whenever you want to, but we want to see you there. I don't want you to miss out. So today I'm speaking with one of our wonderful speakers, Samantha Derrick. She will be on, I'm not sure what day you're presenting, but everyone check out the schedule, please, and register early again. So, Samantha, tell us what you're going to be talking about at VCOP 22, and thank you for joining me.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. My name is Samantha or Sam. I am the founder and executive director of Plant Futures Initiative, which is a global nonprofit that I started a few years ago that is focused on accelerating the transition to a plant-centered food system. So I'm really excited. I'll be sharing more about our work at VCOP, what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and our core areas of focus, and also how you can be part of that movement with us. We focus primarily on youth, universities, curriculum, education, career development, community, all of the above, and really excited to share more at the event.
Wonderful. All right. So, everybody, make sure you register. And now we're going to find out a little bit more about Sam. So, Sam, tell me, how did your vegan journey start?
Yeah, my vegan journey actually started in this very same house that I'm sitting in right now. This is my parents' home. I'm visiting right now. I'm from Florida originally. I was 12 years old living in Florida at the time, and I came across a PETA video of slaughterhouses, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Saw the video. I don't think I got through more than 30 seconds and just had a total breakdown. I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I just didn't I just remember everything I felt in that moment, just feeling so overwhelmed and sad and upset and didn't want to accept that that was what I was eating and that it's the system I was supporting. So I remember starting to do a little bit more research and I remember thinking, this must just be one slaughterhouse. I don't think all animals are treated that way. There's no way this is legal. And just all those thoughts. I started researching and researching. And of course, the more you learn, the more you see, you realize I just felt like what have I been doing my whole life supporting the system? And it was just like I realized that most of our meat comes from these slaughterhouses. And I made a very conscious decision at that time. I remember I was 12 years old and I told my parents I'm never going to eat animals again. And I didn't. That was really the turning point for me. And my life has not been the same since then. And it has transformed my life in the most incredible, beautiful, profound way. I have absolutely thrived on a vegan diet. It has also shaped my career path and Plant Futures, which I'll share a little bit more about, but it really started in that moment. And there were a few other factors that went into it. Right, not too long after that, I saw Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, and that was my first I think the first time really learning about climate change and what was happening. I remember being so shocked. And even though they didn't talk much about agriculture, the documentary, I remember connecting the dots and started realizing, oh, wait, animal agriculture, animal rights, this is actually tied into climate. So then once you start connecting the dots, it all starts making sense. And then public health came next. And that was actually something very personal to me as well, because I grew up in a Mexican household. My mom is a Mexican immigrant, and she came to the US when she was younger with her family. And a lot of her family and the Mexican communities that we grew up around suffer with diet-related chronic disease. A lot of my family members have diabetes, and I remember noticing that growing up and started making the connection around this age to the food that we were eating and to the highly animal-centered diets that my family was eating in the US, which is the most interesting part about that is that this was not at all reflective of how my mom and her family were eating in Mexico, which is largely plant-based. They ate a lot of beans, tortillas, avocado, chiles, that. The Mexican diet is actually predominantly plant-centered and was historically until it got colonized and westernized. And now there is this vision of Mexican diet being this very highly like kind of meat, cheese, highly animal-centric diet. It's actually not at all. It's historic. It's not at all a mirror of how Mexicans used to eat. And this is actually something we've seen globally across so many countries, and across the world. And so then I started getting really interested in this angle. of veganism, being like, wow, public health, plant-based diets could actually transform the life of my family members, of my community, of the world if we get more people eating more plants, because I was seeing just how deeply tied red meat and all of these carcinogens and dairy and how horrible it was for our health. And to me, the longer I was vegan, the more it just made sense for so many reasons. Like there's no going back. This is the absolute best way to eat for animals, for planet, and for my own health. And I could speak about this all day, but it has just so much I feel like my mission in the world and through my work is to get people to eat more plants because it really can change your life. And that's a lot of what we do now at Plant Futures.
Well, that's very interesting. Both of my parents are from Mexico. And
Oh,
yeah, so my mom made homemade tortillas and we ate a lot of beans. And so right now I still eat a lot of tortillas and beans. And yeah, but when I go to Mexico and visit my cousins, there's a lot of meat. And when we came over to the States, we ate a lot of meat also. And I remember as a child having a lot of digestive issues. And of course, those stopped after I became vegan. But yeah, I mean, it was just, I mean, it's so different now in Mexico where there's they do eat a lot of, I mean, my family eats a lot of sodas and junk and sugar and just not the traditional way of eating which you spoke about. The cactuses, the nopales is what my family would eat, cook those up, and the beans and the rice, and that's so totally different and more earth-centered. So it's very interesting.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I think it's the way a lot of populations and communities in Mexico eat now is very much, is very westernized and very animal centered. I also, you see all these street tacos and meat. I think it's both the volume and the quality of meat has changed so drastically. Was meat always a part of their diet? Yes, but in much smaller quantities before this industrial model got introduced to Mexico. Now we're eating it. I mean, to eat meat in Mexico and not just Mexico, most places of the world in the US multiple times a day is an absolute atrocity for your health. And it's so normalized that now people don't question it. They're just eating meat here and there, this meal, and it's devastating. And the science speaks for itself. You look at chronic disease, you look at what's happening to people's health, it's all there. It all makes sense. And like we're just not eating the way that we're supposed to.
That's for sure. And even the corn. I mean, I love regular natural corn, and then they've got the sour cream and all that heavy stuff on it. Gosh, yes. But nevertheless, I mean, thank goodness for what you're doing to educate the younger generations, because we need that. We need people out there getting the word out. And I mean, I'm sure we all felt we all feel like if I'd only known sooner, you know.
100%, 100%, yeah.
Yeah. So what about your family now? Are they vegan also?
No one in my family is actually vegan. They are what I would describe as mostly they're plant-based, plant-centered for sure. And I think they eat maybe 95% vegan. And it's been amazing to see their own journey because I was the first one who just made the decision I'm gonna go vegan, and my family very quickly adapted and they were so kind and supportive from day one. I mean, instead of at that age, I heard of so many of their friends and kids who will go to their parents, like, no, you're eating my food and that's that. Like you're not. And then, of course, a lot of parents are misinformed and think that you need to eat meat for a healthy diet or need dairy. Fortunately, my parents from the beginning, they knew, even though they weren't vegan themselves, they knew, I mean, they ate tofu, they knew that plant-based eating was healthy. So I remember the moment I told them, they're like, let's do it. We're going to support you. We're going to help you with the research. So my mom actually would make me vegan meals separate from the rest of the family, put vegan cheese or whatever it was. But then over time, my family started adapting and they started liking my food better. They're like, wait, we want the vegan option too. So the whole family kind of transitioned, including my siblings, to eating more plant-based. And although they never, I don't, well, no, I would say my mom is pretty much vegan at this point. I know they still occasionally will eat like some cheese or sour cream at a family event or something, but animals they've cut out completely. They still eat a few byproducts here and there, occasional eggs, but for the most part, when I'm home, especially, they eat all vegan. They love it, and my whole fridge is plant-based. I mean, at my parents' home, it's all vegan. There's nothing in there. I think it's more if they go out in a social occasion, they'll have things here and there, but they love it and they just adopted just by eating the food I was eating and realizing that they liked it better and they also felt better eating it. So that was kind of my secret to getting my family to go vegan.
Well, that's a good strategy. So what about women your age? You know, you're in your 30s and when you're out socializing, I mean, what do women your age say about veganism?
A lot of, so let's see. I would say most of my friends are not vegan. I do have a few very close friends, and actually, my colleagues are vegan. I do have several vegans in my life, which I'm very grateful for. But in my circles with friends who are not vegan or vegetarian, in general, I do tend to surround myself by very open-minded, supportive people, and they're all very open-minded. But actually, most of them, if not all of them, have adapted to eating way more plant-based than they used to because they try my food and they maybe had never met vegans before. So in a lot of cases, I'm the first vegan they've met and has introduced them to that way of eating. So I surround myself by a lot of very open-minded people who love this way of eating, and I could actually see a lot of them eventually becoming vegan because I see them moving in that direction. Outside of my immediate circles, I would say Florida is an interesting example of this. Florida is just politically, socially, it's just there's a whole kind of like background and diverse, political opinions and spectrums on veganism specifically. And in general, there isn't a lot of support, I would say, for veganism. So in Florida, I've had to be a little bit more cautious of how I speak about it in public. I don't always get the best reaction at a restaurant if I say I'm vegan, and I actually think it's the context of where we are. But I have noticed that the general sentiment here, and not, I mean, it's not just Florida, it's still a lot of the world. They think the first reaction I get is vegan. How are you not starving all the time? But what do you eat? And are you like, oh, I could never do that. I want to be strong. I want to build muscle. I want to do this. And like all of those, like all of that information, that misinformation is pushed by big ag. It's just like they just repeat it. And it's sad because they fully believe it. And what's interesting is that I am actually, and I'm not like an athlete by any means, but I'm actually more active than most of my friends, including the ones who are not vegan. I run marathons, I strength train every day, I do yoga. So it's interesting to hear people say like, well, I mean, how are you ever going to get strong or do this when it's such a core part of my life is exercising, and I've never had any issues. If anything, I think being vegan has helped me with my strength training, with my recovery, with running faster, all of it. And even growing up, I remember so many moments, including with my physician, going to the doctor. I remember I was at the point with my parents, and we told the doctor that I had adopted a vegan diet, and she was so disappointed. And her first reaction was, "You realize Samantha is probably going to lose her hair, and she's probably not going to grow tall." And this was like around my teenage years. I actually ended up being the tallest in my class. I'm 5'10" and have the longest hair in my class. So it's just like it's been interesting kind of living the opposite of what people associate veganism with, and it's just ridiculous, the stuff that people will believe and choose to believe and want to believe because it's more convenient for them to believe that so they don't have to change their diet. But like I said, fortunately in my immediate circles tend to be very open and supportive, but in a lot of the like at my day-to-day interactions with a lot of public in the world, there's still I met with a lot of resistance.
Oh, well, did the doctor see that you grew tall?
I left. I actually have not gone back, and that was right before my teenage. It would be interesting to go back and revisit that conversation.
Yeah, let me know what happens if you do.
It's just sad for a coming from a doctor too was so disappointing. Just the total lack of like nutrition, education, and yeah, I mean that could be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, good. Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful time talking with you, Sam, and I'm excited again about your presentation at VCOP 22. Everybody, okay, make sure to register. Thriving on Planet B, July 26th and 27th, and come and see Sam. And well, thank you so much, Sam, for talking and sharing those funny stories with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for all the amazing work that you're doing. I'm so excited and honored to be a part of this.
Bye bye, everyone.